Hey kids, Mr. King here again. We are going to make something really cool today. And in fact, I got a hat and go around the edge of my desk to get it. Today, you can still hear me okay, we're going to make a really cool winter nighttime scene. And that means we're going to have these beautiful trees along with some nice rolling snowy hills, maybe some snowfall in the background, some really cool stuff going on right here. So, what we're gonna do, this project involves a whole bunch of materials and you may or may not have them kicking around your house. If you don't, there are substitutes, so don't worry about it too badly. All right, so the first thing you're gonna wanna do, and the things you do really need, is a dark piece of paper. It could be purple or blue. In this case, we're gonna use black. I like that the most personally. And then a piece of white paper. Now, depending on what kind of white paper you have, kind of depends on, or it gives you the options to use different materials. This is watercolor paper. It's pretty thick. And it's meant because we're going to use watercolor pencils. If you want to use marker for this, you can use any paper you got lying around. I would recommend a cardstock because it won't ripple once you add glue to the back of it, which we will. You are going to need some sort of glue stick. In this case, we're using construction paper crayons, but you could easily get away with regular colored pencils or even regular crayons, although they won't show up as vibrantly as they will on construction paper as these kinds will. And if you want to, these are probably my top 2 recommendation for at-home art materials you may not have that you could Amazon order for a relatively inexpensive amount of money. Construction paper crayons run for the small set about $5, and this set of Prismacolors I think is only $7. Really inexpensive for how good they are for their quality. And then just getting some paper to go along with it would be great. So if you're looking for a Christmas gift for that art lover of yours, these are some good recommendations. Anyways, and oh, by the way, the reason I say at-home recommendations is because both of these are very clean options. The construction paper crayons don't pill up like oil pastels do, and the Prismacolor watercolor markers are very, very easy to control where the watercolors go, and therefore not getting a huge mess everywhere. I'm a dad too, so I know exactly what I'm talking about with that. Anyways, so what we're gonna do is we're gonna make our, excuse me, our trees first. So what we're going to do is we're gonna take our white watercolor paper, and we always want to start in what, guys? Pencil, because pencil can erase, and making mistakes is part of art. We just do it anyways, okay? So the easiest tree you could possibly make, for those of you on the younger age of the grade spectrum for this project, is the upside down V, okay? And that is just the triangle tree. So we're gonna make an evergreen just by creating an upside down triangle. It might be hard to see with the pencil. You guys can see it pretty well. But that's it. Simple, easy, done. If you wanna, excuse me, add a little bit extra to that, just add a little zigzag line here and maybe right here to create those kind of tiered layers of your tree. You could also, instead of doing zigzags, you could use wavy lines, or you might just want to make it decorative by adding a series of curved lines. Okay, so you can really do it any way that you want to. So let's go with one step up from that. Oh, and by the way, check this out. You guys see I've got 2 trees right here. Sorry about the bell. Flip it over. I got another tree right here. Look at that, for free. So for this one, let's do kind of like a wavy line going across, separating. Man, we got the announcements right when I'm trying to do this. And then here's the next one. This is the tree that I think most kids want, which looks a little bit more interesting, but is considerably more difficult to do, which is go with a small upside down V at the top of your paper, create a zigzag underneath it, go down a layer here, and this is where I would just start at the first kind of bump into your zigzag, make a diagonal line out, and zigzag underneath that. And do it again. And we're probably gonna have room for one more. And 1, 2 like that. And so you could do the zigzag on the bottom line. I just like carrying it off the page just to make it easy when you cut it out. And so you guys can see there's a whole bunch of different ways you can make your trees. You are gonna cut these out in the end, so let's, try to spend some time making it look really good, make it easy on ourselves. Permanent marker. When we go over our lines in a dark permanent marker especially, that's an illustrative technique. Usually it is referred to as inking your lines. Why is it called inking your lines? Well, crazily enough, guess what this marker uses to make its marks? Ink, you guessed it. So when we ink our lines, we're doing an illustrative technique. It's very important when you're trying to make sure you don't lose those really beautiful outlines that you've made. So I really recommend it for a lot of art that you'll be doing at this age group, getting into that habit. Now the reason why we're using permanent marker and not just a regular Crayola is we're going to use watercolors. We don't want that marker to move around. If you're one of those really little guys, I do trust my littlest ones in the classroom to use permanent markers, as crazy as that sounds, because I clean up, I mean, these desks are that kind of fake Formica stuff, so they clean off with a little bit of rubbing alcohol and take even the permanent marker off. But if you're at home and you don't have a surface that you can put rubbing alcohol on like that, so you don't have like a plasticky table to use, then I would say at that point, maybe help your child with that. Or if you don't want to, here's a pro tip, go right ahead and have them do crayon, because that resist will do the same kind of thing. The only problem is it's harder to control those lines because they're kind of, you know, fuzzy. And it's also harder to make sure that you can see all the details you've made because of that. So, okay, so we got it done there. Ready? We're gonna go for our watercolor pencils now. Now, if you are that person who's at home, one cool tip is to take, and I'll show you this really fast, if you take your water-based markers, which we were talking about not using for the outline, well, if you color in with these, one neat thing is these are water-based markers, right? So what do you think happens when we add water to water-based markers? Well, they bleed, which in this case, we actually might want. So you can go right ahead and color your tree in with your Crayolas or Mr. Sketches or RoseArts or whatever, you know, brand you have. Go ahead and color it all the way in. And I'm just gonna go kind of crazy with my colors. And this is nice too, because you may not know what color you're gonna end up getting when you mix these together, but you'll find out once you add a little bit of water. So I'm gonna do that one a marker, and I'm gonna do the other one in a watercolor pencil. If you have watercolors on hand, go ahead and use those, the regular watercolor cakes. Honestly, the only reason I use the pencil is because with the youngest ones, it's a lot easier to work on applying your color where you want it, and not to oversaturate your paper, which is something that really happens easily with little kids. So I often have them start with watercolor pencils. And the older guys, I have them use it too, just because they're easy enough to control. They can do a lot more kind of cool detail there. So I did a bunch of colors in there. Now the next step is you're gonna take your brush, dip it in a little bit of water. Here's the big thing. You do not wanna make puddles. You're not doing a dripping wet brush. So make sure you get the leftover water off there. So we're gonna put it right over the marker here. And you can already see I'm pulling that blue up into my pink and my green down into my red, and that's gonna get very brown down there, which is kind of neat to talk about. Oh, wow, that's how you make brown. You get complementary color sets. And you can already see those colors bleeding together. I really like that. So honestly, the water-based markers is not a bad option. The watercolor pencils just let you pull that color around a little bit more, which really can be nice. And they're a little bit more translucent, so, you know, a little bit of a different quality to these, although they do basically the same thing. And it lets us talk about that color blending, which is part of what this project is about. It's also about breaking down a more complicated thing into a basic geometric shape. So our trees are just triangles in the end. Anyways, we're done with that. Now the next step. We're about to cut those out, but why don't we let that dry? And while we let this dry, we're gonna work on our background on our black paper. So take a bright color with a lot of contrast here, and you are going to draw, what I like to do is just 3 hills. So you draw one curved line that's off the paper, another curved line that overlaps from that, and then one more that goes off the other side. And I've got my 3 beautiful hills. Now, you could make these white because it's like a snowy scene, but go crazy with the color. Don't let that hold you back, okay? Snow reflects all colors because it is so pure white. So let's go and get some, I mean, honestly, doing plain white on its own, that's just boring. Let's go here and get a little crazy. So go ahead and get your greens and your blues and your yellows and your reds and mix them on up. See what happens when you blend your colors this way with the crayons. It's different than with the paint. Let's get a little yellow in here. But you still do get some color blending that way, which is kind of interesting. So I kind of lighten up that green by adding my yellow. It's more of a yellowy green. So I've got a nice set of hills here. And it'll tell you a really cool thing to pull back and be able to see those lines a little better because we're losing the edges of our hill now. They're adding so much color in here. I'm gonna stick with my cool colors here actually. Got a little yellow for warm, but still feeling really cool, which is fine. So, I got my hills done here. Now what I'm gonna do is I'm also gonna put the trunks of my trees. I'm gonna use my orange here. I'm gonna make a couple of kind of orangish rectangles at the top of my hills. So I'm just gonna, let's do 3, although I only have 2 of my trees actually finished and colored. I might then actually add some snow falling by using my white, just making some dots. You could totally do this with regular colored pencils. They work fine too, especially on a dark paper like this. You could actually use pastels as well if you don't have any of those kicking around. And then we're gonna cut this out real quick, okay? So I'll do the best I can as quickly as I can to cut these out. Now this multi-tiered tree down over here is the hardest one to cut out. My tip is to cut right along the edges of the boughs that you've created in here, and then just cut out the little triangles that are left over. For little guys, for my kindergarten and first graders, I don't recommend that. I don't even usually in the classroom show them this tree. I usually show them the triangle tree. So, you know, if you're there helping your little guy out, which you probably are, doing this one usually requires you to do it with them to give them a little extra help. So this one's cut out now. The triangle ones are so much easier because you just have straight lines to cut. And I'm almost done. Okay, so there's one tree. Put that there just so I can see it. Tree number 2. There we go. And tree number 3 is going to be just white right now, just because I don't want to spend the time in the video doing a 3rd tree. All right, so then the last steps to this. One is to take your glue stick, put a nice healthy coating of glue on the back of your tree, press it down over your trunk. Don't worry about those snowflakes. You can cover them up. It's not the end of the world. I like when the snowflakes just peek out behind the tree. If you want to put a moon in the sky, do that. If you want to put, like, you know, something funny in the background, like a little snowman, that's cool. I even had some kids get really creative and do like a UFO, you know, with a little laser beam or something, or a little Sasquatch going between the trees. Sorry guys, I got a little catch in my throat today. And then, really cool thing, Sharpie. Bust your Sharpie back out. Watch this. Goes right over the construction paper crayon, or any crayon for that matter. And you can go back in and add your outlining and ink those outlines. And really, I think that makes these look a lot more completed, a lot nicer. You can go back in and add some extra decorations and patterns in your tree. Let's add a little texture into these trunks here. You could even outline your snowflakes, little circles there, and that really just, that extra black just helps it pop, look really good. And there you got it. Hopefully I didn't go way too long on this video, but there's a lot of steps to this, but it's worth it, as you can see. Get a really cool, fun winter nighttime scene. You can dress it up any, you can add some cool additional patterns, extra color, stars instead of snow, all kinds. So, you know, get creative with this. Go crazy. Have some fun. Make. All right? So that's it, guys. Next time I see you, we'll be coming up on holiday break. So, you know, obviously have happy holidays. But I'll try to leave you, you know, one more project for that break and to have some fun. All right? Catch you later.